let's talk about the royal worship that eats headlines alive. And I'm not talking about Meghan and Harry because everyone has screamed about that already, including me. I mean the other side, the blind, breathless worship of William and Kate, the selective outrage, the memory holes, the convenient silence around Andrew, the strange media reality where the smallest thing Meghan does becomes a scandal, while the rest of the family gets a halo made out of thin air. Now, before we go any further, let me make something very clear. This is not a redemption tour for Meghan and Harry. Their behavior, their entitlement, their constant need to play victims, that still stands. The criticism they've received for that is valid. I've talked about it before, and nothing in this video changes any of that. This is not about choosing sides. This is about calling out the double standard. Because you can criticize Meghan and Harry for their nonsense, and at the same time recognize that the other side of the royal family has done things that are far more serious, far more damaging, and far more morally questionable. And somehow that side gets a pass. Let's start with the scale problem. Meghan gets dogpiled for trivia. Meanwhile, others get framed as graceful, noble, and flawless by default. The contrast is insane. For example, remember the whole avocado thing? There were actual headlines suggesting that Meghan's avocado toast was tied to human rights abuses, drought, and murder. I'm not exaggerating. We took a breakfast snack and escalated it into a war crime. That's how desperate the outrage machine was. And then there was Wimbledon. People got mad because her protection officer asked a few spectators not to take photos while she was sitting there. How dare she want privacy? Meanwhile, every public figure has their security handle crowd cameras all the time. But with her, it became a moral failing. So this is my problem. Is her avocado toast a national crisis worthy of news? This is journalism. This is a campaign, a very personal and very targeted campaign. And it tells you that the issue has never been standards. It's always been selective enforcement depending on who the press wants you to love and who they want you to despise. Now let's talk about Andrew, because this is where the double standard becomes impossible to ignore. After that disastrous Newsnight interview and the civil case settlement, yes, Andrew stepped back from royal duties. That part is public record, but the idea that he was truly removed from the royal circle doesn't hold up when you look at what happened next. In 2022, at Prince Philip's memorial, Andrew escorted the Queen into the service, on camera, in a cathedral, broadcast worldwide. That wasn't accidental. That was a choice made by the family. And only after people reacted with shock did we start seeing articles claiming senior royals were dismayed or caught off guard by Andrew's prominent role. That's not accountability. That's PR damage control. So while Meghan gets headlines about avocado toast and selfies, Andrew gets careful narrative cleanup, a soft landing, a rewrite after the fact. If public morality actually mattered here, the line would have been drawn before the cameras rolled, not after. And here's the part people really hate hearing. The Queen herself protected Andrew for years. That was a deliberate royal choice. She stood by him publicly and privately, long after the severity of his associations and allegations were well known. And the rest of the family? They went along with it. William went along with it. Kate went along with it. Charles went along with it. Nobody drew a hard line. Nobody took a public stand. Nobody said, this is unacceptable. The institution moved as one. And the direction was protection, not accountability. Only now, long after the public turned, long after court settlements, long after reputational damage is irreversible, now we're suddenly hearing stories floated in the press that William was disgusted by Andrew or that Charles was always deeply concerned. These are convenient stories. They show up just in time to preserve the clean, polished future of the monarchy. The family didn't distance themselves from Andrew. They only distanced themselves from the public backlash around him. And that is what makes the current royal worship so frustrating. Because these new narratives trying to paint William and Kate as the brave voices who stood up internally, they're not supported by their behavior. They're supported only by anonymous sources in the press. Carefully timed, carefully worded, carefully placed. The silence when it mattered tells the truth louder than any palace-friendly headline ever could. Another trick the palace and the media use is body language storytelling. Instead of actually saying anything about Andrew, we get these exaggerated readings of how William angled his shoulder away or how Kate looked tense near him at events, as if posture equals principle. It's a way to suggest disapproval without ever having to take a real stance. No statements, no accountability, just vibes. A closed-off pose is not a moral line, it's choreography. And honestly, I'll call myself out here too. I've gone hard on Meghan and Harry. Really hard. I've dragged the entitlement, the theatrics, the constant victim narrative, and I stand by the essence of that commentary, but not the intensity. And yes, I've also praised William and Kate, sometimes a little too easily. I've bought into that graceful future king and queen framing without questioning what was being strategically left unsaid. But now that the truth is this visible, this undeniable, I can't pretend I don't see it. And what shocks me is how many people still can. How some royal supporters are acting like absolutely nothing has changed. Like Andrew's situation didn't happen. Like the queen didn't actively protect him. Like William, Kate, and Charles weren't silent through all of it. On YouTube and comment sections in royal fan communities, the pattern is still the same. Praise the Waleses, tear down Meghan, and reduce Andrew to a quick disclaimer so the conversation can move on. If your moral outrage is strongest over avocado toast and weakest over a man connected to a trafficking scandal, your priorities are showing. And honestly, the past couple of weeks have been tough to watch. I've been seeing the headlines, the commentary, the royal fan takes, and I kept waiting for the tone to shift. I really thought that once everything became this obvious, more people would acknowledge it. Not to excuse Meghan and Harry, because their behavior is still what it is, but just to recognize the bigger picture. Because compared to what's been happening with the senior royals, Meghan and Harry's drama is petty. It's embarrassing, it's annoying, but it isn't this. And yet, the commentary hasn't changed. The worship hasn't changed. People are still pretending nothing is happening. And that's honestly why it took me this long to make this video. I wanted to see if the narrative would correct itself, but it didn't. So here we are.